Rule number one in Mr. Price's class is to always question authority. Hi, I'm Jim Price. I'm a degenerate, I'm a contrarian, and I'm a professor of film. So I grew up in the South in a Methodist minister's home, and I say it that way because my dad was pretty progressive as things go. He was involved in the civil rights movement. He was always concerned with those issues, and he studied the Bible not from just an emotional point, but from an intellectual point. And that had an impact on the way that he saw the Bible as being able to be taught on different levels and from different perspectives. And so my wife likes to say that I don't just teach film, I preach film, because of the relationship that I have with my father. I was an ethnocentric kid who didn't realize what was going on in the rest of the world. And Costa Rica, I think, taught me that there was another world out there beyond myself. And so I've always tried to bridge that there's something that you don't know that you need to know.
Walt Disney's most entertaining triumph in the art of animation is here.
The first film I remember seeing is my father took us to a drive-in, and it was The Jungle Book, and I fell in love with Mowgli. I fell in love with the sounds, with the music, with the animation, and the way the animation came to life.
Boo! Let's get out of... Run, train, run!
And the film that was the aha moment for me was Ingmar Bergman's Fanny and Alexander. I remember going and paying for the ticket, walking in the cinema. It was dark, it reeked. I can remember the whir of the projector, I can remember the light coming on, and I can remember the image coming up. And the image that Bergman set for the start of the film was just a whole series of clocks, as if time was passing and as if you were seeing time pass. And I remember thinking, that this has to mean more than just a shot of clocks. So far, I hadn't had classes on aesthetics and that kind of things. I just realized immediately that image was important, that the series of clocks that were shown in this film had some underlying meaning, and that I had to find out what it meant. That is what the best directors do. The best directors lead you to lessons. That is, they lead you to different levels if you watch them closely. And you can read the story just as a story, but good directors will imbue that story with symbols and motifs and tools that allow them to tell multiple stories at a time. The best films are the ones that you know there's deeper meaning than what you expect. That is, you have to return to the films over and over to get its meaning. When I was a curator of film, I did a film series once, and Mark Richardson, who's a filmmaker in New York City, insisted that I include Sam Fuller in that film series. And Sam Fuller is a B-movie director. He was never an A-list movie director in Hollywood, always made B films, but in his films, he imbued them with elements of culture that nobody thought was possible. So Naked Kiss is a 1950s movie about a woman deciding to have an abortion, way ahead of its time. Every one of his films included the bust of Beethoven, who he often used the music of Beethoven for.
What?
You know what I mean.
No, I don't know what you mean, Johnny. You tell me.
Fuller was someone who understood the zeitgeist, understood the problems of America, and made small budget B-movie films in a way that included these concepts within them, because those were the films that most of normal Americans would go see during a weekend, maybe not have enough money to go an A-list film, went to a B-list film instead. I want to teach at a community college because I believe that these are students who need to have the quality of education equal to someone who's at Harvard or Yale or Princeton or MIT. So I keep a very high standard in my class in order to suggest to students that there are ways to decipher, understand, reflect on who they are through the arts, through academics, and through their ability to see in a new way. If I can teach you what the rules of seeing are, including the vocabulary for seeing, it's like having a tackle box when you're fishing, right? You're looking for things that will catch fish. And in film, you're looking for things that will catch meaning. And so if you start to use these concepts that I teach, it starts to allow you to see how a two-dimensional picture influences your emotion. What film does to our culture is often allow a director to force us to see the world in a new way, or force us to see things that we don't see in ourselves. The first lesson I teach students is to know where the camera is. The camera has enormous power to control what you see. So what you see on TV and what you see on the media is often a way of controlling how you see, what you see, and what questions are being asked. If you know that, then you have the ability to say, why is the picture asking this of me? Or what is the picture asking of me? Or how is the picture asking the question? And so you can become a better critiquer, you can become a better understander of, that's not a word, but you can understand what the meaning of film is in a way that allows you to use the media and not have the media use you. I think back to my professors as the moments in which I have understood that I'm being led into the secret of knowledge. And that kind of moment was my aha moment to understand that academics matter, learning matters, knowledge matters, those kind of things. And I had a series of teachers who taught me that in different ways. The sacredness of knowledge is what they should always pursue. I enter into my class coming in and usually making a joke. That is, I usually come in and say I'm somebody that I'm not. And then one of the students recognizes that I'm not that person and says, wait a minute, you're not that person, you don't teach that class. And I always say, rule number one in Mr. Price's class is to always question authority, right? Understood in that the ability to question authority is what makes knowledge sacred. And so if I can teach students that the ability to ask me a question leads us both to knowledge, then I have done what I intended to do. The sacred is an element in the structure of human consciousness. And the ability of students to understand that their consciousness is expanded by finding things that are sacred to them and holding on to those sacred things throughout their life is, to me, what academics is all about.
Baby, you are gonna miss that plane.
I know.
So the ending of Before Sunset, he goes into the girl's apartment and she's very suggestive with him, and he ends up missing his plane, which is a metaphor of doing something that you don't expect in life. And so that's the way I always end my class, is that I hope my students end up missing their plane at some point in their life. They do something other than what they've planned for.